Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. In the spirits of Paul Jackson reigning supreme tonight, we got a chance today to speak to a master improviser and composer, a guy who continues to create new vocabulary on the bandstand. Jack Walrath, an honor to welcome you to the Jake Feinberg Show. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you.
Can you talk about your concept, like the germ of a song? Like from your earliest ages, do you recall just sort of having themes in your head? And also, and the other thing is, when you construct the song, does it come through you in one whole thing, or does it come in different
All
things?
different kinds of things. It's sometimes I'll just hit a chord on the piano or something, and sometimes something will come in my head.
Right.
Most of the things I will go back, excuse me,
Bless you.
and revise and do things like that. Some kind of come all at once, but I still go back and change little things sometimes. And so I'm not really a piano player, which I don't know. Maybe it was kind of, and it works in my favor a little because I can come up with different chords. I know where the notes are, but if I was a piano player, I'd play more. Probably play, more like piano players, with
Right.
the faster chords and stuff, and not get into the harmony as deep.
You
Stuff like
would
that.
never consider yourself a jazz purist. I mean, you were into funk and rock and all those things back in the early to mid 60s. I mean, part of that was incorporated into those early compositions that Vince and Mike and Paul were playing
Paul
with you
Jackson,
on the bandstand. Yeah.
I miss Paul Jackson.
Paul, I want you to talk about Paul Jackson because I'm telling you, his spirit is here tonight. He told me, in no uncertain terms, it's in my third book. Jack Walrath's compositions were so far ahead of anything else going on at that time.
I never heard Paul say a bad word about anybody. He was a funny guy. When we were in Japan with Mike Clark, like in 2005, we're in this hotel room, and he was in his room, and the television was just blasting. It was like.
But he was watching the TV?
What happened was they got the people had to take the door off, and went inside, and he was like, look. He was all standing around. Is he all right?
Right.
And then finally somebody shook him. Said, "Yeah, what?" He was just sleeping, but it was blasting. It was ridiculous. Paul was. I like Paul.
What was it like to see him? Because a lot of people only associate him playing that electric bass, but he was playing string bass with you, right?
Well, he played string bass with me.
And can you talk about in an acoustic setting with Mike and Paul and Vince? I mean, that's like Jones Barbecue era. Like, that's greasy Oakland. I want you to break that down. That is my heartbeat, man.
Yeah, and the piano player was a guy named Jim Young.
Thank you for throwing that out there. Is he still with us, or is he?
He was actually the bigger name
Really?
at the time in Oakland or in the Bay.
But you were you fronted the band, though.
Yeah. And like I said, we did some things that. Herbie Hancock, they took to Herbie Hancock.
Actual proof. Don't be modest about
kind
that.
of feeling. Yeah, we had this tune. I wrote this tune called Philosopher's Stone, and there was we played in this club, and one day Mike couldn't make it, so Gaylord Birch came in. We were good friends too. We'd been on Cold Blood together and played gigs, and so I said to Gaylord, do something like. You can have the funk feeling and everything, but don't play on the backbeat. So
no backbeat, yeah.
And like you're playing jazz, but with the funkiness. So we did it, and then the next week Mike came back and Paul explained it to him, and the next thing I know, they.
That's what he was saying. That's where the germ of it came from.
Yeah.
It was called Philosopher's Stone.
Pardon me?
What was this tune called?
Philosopher's Stone, yeah.
All right, Jack, I want you to talk about change. Because that's off the grid. You guys never got in the recording studio.
No,
It was a short-lived band, but you're telling me that was pre-Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Yeah, we started in Boston.
You were at Berkeley at the time.
Yeah, well, I graduated Berkeley. I lived in Boston for a year after
I did.
Berkeley.
Were you playing the Combat Zone, the strip clubs?
Oh,
and
I
stuff?
I played drums in there in Combat Zone.
Walrath on the kit, dude. Are you kidding me, dude?
On R&B gigs, you know.
Playing like what were the dancers calling for? Like, were they calling for Hank Ballard tunes, or were they calling for Milestones or Duke Ellington tunes?
What, the Combat Zone?
Yeah, and the strippers.
It was well, it wasn't strippers. It was like top 40
burlesque. Oh,
soul,
really?
Soul things.
Really?
Otis Redding and stuff like that. You know,
Wow.
Knock on Wood.
Gut Bucket.
And that kind of stuff. You know.
Green Onions.
Actually, that was an old tune by then.
So you were already in Boston post Berkeley and changed. Who was in that band?
Well, the guy that was the leader was a guy named Lenny Capizzi, who wrote the Monster Mash, and he played piano, but he wasn't very good. He was kind of one of the detriments.
Was he a singer? Maybe he was a good singer. Or?
Yeah, he was a singer. Yeah, and his brother was a singer too. A guy named Billy Euro. There was a woman named Timmy Euro. I don't know if you ever heard of her.
I do see names of that.
That was their cousin. And Billy was in L.A. at the time, big guy. They called him the Round Mound of Sound, and he was. I was hoping he would join.
I cannot believe you just dropped that.
And we had a guy named Billy Elgard on drums, and Gary Peacock.
Gary Peacock.
Yeah, Billy and Gary Peacock had just made a record with Paul Bley called Mr. Joy. Do you know that one?
Oh, dude, is Billy still alive?
Billy's in Europe, but I think he's still alive.
Dude, this is the most explosive, and you were playing trumpet.
Yeah, I was playing trumpet, and who else we have? We had a bass player named Michael Caine who went and joined a band called Young Bloods.
Well, Michael Caine, this is really wait, but Peacock was playing bass, I thought.
Yeah, after Peacock left, you know, and who else did we have? Nobody that I don't know. There was.
But again, you had a chance to incorporate your arrangements.
Well, I wrote most of the music.
Amazing.
You know, and we were like what they would call jazz fusion, but our fusion was with Ascension. Coltrane, it was like, top 40 R&B kind of music, like I said, with, Otis Redding and sax volt kind of music, mixed with...
But you've been doing that, so then explain where Mingus fits into all this. Because to me, Charles McPherson told me the sickest story about this dude. They were playing a ballad in Vancouver, and there were a bunch of Vancouver football players in this, and they were very rowdy and drunk. Mingus got off the stage, went to go. One of the cats got up, big 300-pound guy, went to swing at him. Mingus was very quick, even though he was a big guy, and he dodged him and then just chucked him across the floor.
Yeah.
He was an uncompromising guy, and also there's that legendary book, Beneath the Underdog.
Yeah.
And he wanted to kill Dolphy, and all this crazy stuff. But you are, to me, Mingus. Was he playing a version of funk in his own way?
Well, not really. What happened is with this band, we moved to Los Angeles, and we got a couple guys from the Mother Invention. Roy Estrada, the bass player.
Unbelievable.
Who, the guy that's like, woo! Roy's in prison.
Roy's
He's been
in prison?
in prison for a long time, like child molestation.
Oh no!
And he was so nice and sweet guy, you know what I mean?
He went off the rails.
You know, and Bunk Gardner played with us for a minute.
Bunk Gardner was in the Mothers?
For a minute,
yeah.
before he played with, and we had Jay Graydon, who became a big...
Massive.
Yeah.
I think Graydon might have played the solo on Asia.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, possibly on that.
And we had Billy Elgard in that band, and who else did we have? Well, there was another guy named Tom Trujillo. He made a record with...
Dude, I know Tom.
You know him? He changed his name.
He did, exactly. Dude, I cannot believe you just... Tom Trujillo.
Yeah, we had him and...
Did you ever know Big Black, by the way, the Congo player?
No.
Okay, yeah, continue.
But then a couple guys from Berkeley, and first George Bohannon did our first rehearsal.
My dear friend.
When we got out there.
What a bone player.
And he recommended Glenn Ferris.
Another Zappa
Glenn
cat.
Ferris and I become very tight. We did tours later in Europe.
Is Glenn still with us?
Glenn's in Paris. He's been there for years and years.
Oh my God.
And
this is ridiculous.
so what happened was I was really into a Mingus record called Mingus Presents Mingus with Ted Curson and Derek Dolphy and Danny and Mingus. And
Danny on kit?
what was that?
Danny on drums.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a quartet. I was
Beautiful.
really
Yeah.
into that.
It
So
was on Columbia, maybe?
no, it was
Atlantic, maybe.
they resurrected the name.
That's not important. Go ahead. You were into that album.
Cadence, maybe?
Cadence.
Not Cadence, but anyway.
Yeah.
So we had a group kind of modeled on that, and Ornette Coleman.
Wow.
And there we had Reggie Johnson on bass for a while.
Legend.
And
On Upright?
yeah. And Bruce Kale was, after Reggie left, he played with John Handy for a while, and he moved back to Australia. He's a big deal. He writes symphonies and stuff now. And Billy Elgart was playing drums again. And that's how we got into that Mingus kind of thing. And then...
what is the Mingus, for people that are going to listen to this in 50 years when me and you are no longer on the planet, what is that Mingus thing?
Well, we kind of did it off, that kind of, very loose kind of, collective a little bit, and but then I got on Ray Charles's band from L.A. and did a season with him.
Wow.
And
Unbelievable.
actually, tell you the truth, like Mingus was like the Easter Bunny compared to Ray Charles.
Whoa. Whoa, you're dropping serious knowledge.
Yeah.
Ray was really that nat?
Oh, he was, he could be a real drag,
Mingus was...
I mean, he was petty, he just
Yeah, I did.
charged you if your tie wasn't on straight or something, you know what I'm saying, like that.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe worse, if not worse than Ray Charles was when I was in LA. I played with Motown. They were on their way of moving from Detroit.
Sure.
And I was only
Gene
I was
Page.
the only white guy in the band. So whenever they got a bad review, they say, I think it's the guy playing third trumpet on the end.
Well, I want to be clear. You're talking about getting hired when the acts would come in to play live, or or you're talking about studio gigs?
What, Motown?
Yeah.
Oh no, there was a live. We did the Temptations.
Exactly. Marvin Gaye,
and,
those cats would come in.
Smokey Robinson. Carla Thomas, she was cute. She was a whole different thing.
Absolutely. That's so cool. Do you remember, by the way, it's funny, I just interviewed the Barry player from Count Basie's band, Johnny Williams.
Okay.
And he's one of the only, him and Harold Jones, the only two cats left. Did you play with Jamerson possibly?
With him?
With James Jamerson? Do you remember who the rhythm section was?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah. So you got the Motown gigs live. Those could be.
Yeah, I was doing the live thing. I was doing some things before I left Boston with Jackie Wilson, and another one of my great decisions was there was a band called Cliff Nobles and Company, which made a record called The Horse, and they wanted me to join their band. I said, I don't want to join that, and it was Philadelphia International. They ended up doing that, and I played with those guys. But then I went and I played with Motown. I thought for a while I couldn't do anything else than that,
Sure.
And the best one was the Four Tops. I liked them better, and their shit was the most together stuff.
I agree. Their arrangements were superior.
And
I agree.
Yeah, they were the best, and I like their songs the best.
Yeah.
I thought Smokey Robinson looked like a little girl the way he would do his thing, But I guess he wrote most.
Well,
he wrote a lot of the songs.
Fearless, dude.
You really got a hold on me is one of my favorites.
That's
but
I want to ask you something about, because he's going to be tuning in.
But I want to tell you the thing about contrasting with Ray Charles.
Sure.
Was
with Mingus.
They didn't have some of the petty things that Ray did, but we were in a bus, during a tour with the Temptations, and it was a double-decker bus, and the Temptations had the bottom of the bus and the top half of the bus to themselves. People were sitting on their instrument cases and shit. They didn't have, And then at one point they pulled in, they decided they wanted to take a nap, and they pulled in, they left on the bus for 4 hours when they checked into a hotel and took a nap, It was most time was really inhuman, really bad.
Wow.
We were backing up.
I'm glad to hear, this is important stuff to be sharing.
We were backing up the Supremes once, and they had a band leader named Gil Askey, and he was with us. in our dressing room. He walked around with like a half gallon of vodka. You know, he said, "I hope I die tomorrow." And then the girls were in another room. It wasn't Diana. It was Jean Terrell. You know, Ernie Terrell's sister. And they were in the other room, and they didn't like something that the conductor was doing. So instead of just calling them over and telling them, they sent one of their guys to call Detroit and talk to him.
Barry Gordy.
I don't know. It was just it was
a
like
mess.
it was the phone company had more soul than both Ray and them. You know.
Did you contemplate? I mean, it was hard to get into the studio scene, but like the Gary Grants and those trumpet players. Did you crack the? Did you do some?
I didn't really get into the scene. Actually, when I first got there, I met a guy named. I went there with Art Barron. He's a trombone player.
Yeah.
And we went across, and I met a guy named King Harrison.
Dude, the King is a dear friend.
You know him?
Dude, he was on Thunderball with
yeah, right.
yeah,
Thunderball,
yeah. Unbelievable, dude.
And so
I cannot
he
put
didn't
Sean
know,
Connery-
he
Sean
didn't know
Connery.
anything, and so
Dude, you and King Harrison were hanging, dude. This is.
So I wrote I wrote some tunes. He didn't even know anything about me. You know, I wrote songs for him, and we did a recording. You know, with him and I forget the saxophone, which I shouldn't, because he got me the gigs with Motown.
Wilton Felder.
Preston Love.
Preston Love.
You know him?
Dude, that is a little bit. That's off the grid for. I mean, because you were there.
And then we had like Joe Sample and Wilton Felder.
Dude,
Wilton Felder was playing bass.
Ed Green on drums. David T.
I
Walker.
don't remember who was on
Yeah.
drums.
I mean,
But I saw they reissued that, and they put on a track that didn't make it to the LP. But anyway, he didn't know anything about me, and my wife and I was married to a black girl, and his wife was from South Africa. They became big friends, and so. But then, you know, after when I went back, then I was tired of Los Angeles. I didn't like it. I thought it was hell. You know, I don't like Los Angeles.
I did.
It just seemed as plastic.
Where were you from originally, actually?
Well, I was born in Florida, but when I was a baby, my parents moved to Montana.
Wow.
And
Okay, so that means LA is the farthest vibe.
Yeah,
from
and
that.
when I was 18, I went to Boston to go to school.
I dig.
I lived in New York for one summer in Eric Dolphy's old loft. He had a loft there. And then I went back to Boston. From Boston, I went to LA. Because everything is going to be great. Because we always think, well, there's not very good music coming out of LA. We'll kill them. No, that's what it is. Which I discovered that's what it was, you know.
That's right.
And
Suck the soul right out of it.
right. So then I got on Ray's band, and I got in LA, and I got off in Oakland, and where the music was much better. And Paul and Mike and Vince and those cats were there. You know, a friend of mine named Jules Rowell, who was kind of a musical genius, but he's I don't know.
He's a little bit out.
He was in a band called Azteca.
Dude, I cannot. Dude, my dear friend Pete Escovedo.
You know Azteca?
I love Azteca. Dude, Paul Jackson was in the band, and Tom Harrell was in the band, and Lenny White was in that band for
Right.
a minute.
Well, I played with them once, and
Did you play Caesar 830?
Pardon me?
Caesar Escarones? Caesar 830. There was a
I played Cesar Escarones. He ran for mayor
the,
later
the,
on.
the man blessed me. I was at his place in somewhere in San Francisco, and it was a spiritual tribal. The man, but he had that club. You must have been playing that club, Caesar 830.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So you would say that before I let you go, because you actually have another set to play, and I don't want to keep you because we're going to do a phone or two. But I just wanted to ask you about how labels have stratified.
Yeah, let me say more about
Hit it
Azteca first.
Yeah, Azteca.
Well, a friend of mine, Jules Rowell, was in it. The guy that I got in Rave's band with me, and the first record he did. I thought the most interesting thing on the record. There was some pizzicato violin stuff on one of the tunes, you know. But he was kind of nuts, you know what I mean?
George DeQuatro was out there.
What's that?
George DeQuatro.
Yeah, he was George IV then. And Flip
Dude,
Nunez.
Dude, my heroes. And Murabus, I don't know if George Murabus was in the band.
Yeah, Flip Nunez. Pete Escovedo was my landlord. I lived next door to him.
What a beautiful man.
And
You knew Coke, obviously.
and Coke died even then, you know.
Yeah,
and
he was already
I
dead,
took
yeah.
over his place, which was an attic that I liked, and I lived next door to him. And Sheila would practice from the time she got up until the time she went to bed. You know, I know she's a kid, like 14 or something like that.
Did you know Garibaldi and those cats?
No, I didn't know those guys.
Jack London Square. You never made it over there to play with with Mike and you guys played the Orphanage a lot.
Yeah, I was in Cold Blood, and Skip Mesquite, who had been in Tower Power before, said they were looking for people. But
Rod Ellicott was in the band.
Yeah, Rod Ellicott. I wanted to go to New York. Raul Matuti, Michael Sasaki.
Badass group. Was Gaylord playing drums?
Pardon me?
Gaylord was on drums?
Gaylord was on drums, yeah. And then, I don't know, Gaylord left for something, and I tried to get Eddie Marshall on it, and he played a couple gigs, but then they got this other guy, I don't remember his name.
Harvey Hughes, man. Yeah, I was going to say, did you ever go to Bop City to try to sit in?
Bop City?
Yeah, North Beach.
No, that wasn't...
Tour. Did you play for Carol Doda? Did you play for the Strippers at all with Mark Levine and Ed Neumeister and those cats?
Oh.
Or the Black Knight in Oakland?
No, the Black Knight?
Yeah, the Black Knight. Tom Costner.
I played
Tommy
the Black
Costner
Knight
used
with
to,
Mike once. Mike and Paul.
Yeah, Mike and Paul. I just want you to. He's gonna watch this later. Can you talk about why you love Mike Clark's drumming style?
Well, he was an original. And Mike and I had a falling out. He doesn't even talk to me anymore, you know. Like, well, I don't know. He was in this kind of cultish thing. And I said, well, I found something better. That's all it took, you know.
Yeah.
And for some of the people that get into that.
Oh, that
stuff,
breaks
you
my
know.
heart. I'm really bummed. I feel like you guys need to have a recount.
Well, Paul was in it, and he wasn't. You know, other people. I know other people in it, but it was just very. Those things get exclusive. You know what I mean?
I agree. They get
You
real
know.
uppity. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And Buster Williams was a big honcho in New York. He was a honcho. They called him a honcho.
This is a chanting thing. Yeah, Wayne Shorter was in. I get it.
I tried it. It was called Nichiren Shoshu when I tried it.
That's right.
They had a fighter.